It is Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was yet another No Jiu-Jitsu, Get Your Ass Kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. One of these days we're going to resolve that, I'm sure. It's coming soon. I'm starting to feel it out there. Apparently I'm, as usual, just a little bit ahead of the curve on the sensation. And, what I've been generally feeling for about 2 months now. Seems like it's starting to percolate that people are starting to understand that the shutdown has a lot more to do with our our issues with regard to our governmental burdens and the regulatory constraints that we're experiencing and the kind of model that it's fostered as far as supply chains go. And sorry about the gravel in my throat. I'm definitely going to take a shower during the break. Hopefully that will resolve it. Anyway, but yeah, so I think that the people are starting to feel it out there. I'm starting to see a lot of people getting ready to plant crops. Myself, I got some seeds started. And I think that's going to be vastly important in another month or so, really. That there are disruptions in our supply chains. And, of course, these are caused by economic issues where there's been increasing taxation and devaluing currencies. And, of course, increasing regulatory scope and all that. That just, it doesn't work good for a lot of people. In that there's a intent behind regulation, or at least ostensibly. But in the end, all it really does is it modifies the entire choice spectrum for the entire market instead of the people that are providing these services. So instead of you, me, everybody else getting to create our own shit and then, talking to other people and seeing if they would like to try our shit and all that, and using the internet, of course, to distribute that kind of thing. Rather than that, we have to get some sort of license and we have to get some sort of insurance and there's all kinds of bullshit liability. And it kind of disincentivizes the whole idea of trying to contribute to society as a whole in any way, shape, or form, because you really can't do it in a way that compensates you in any depth, like, to the contribution that you've made. So like if you had made the atomic bomb, right, but you had to get a license, and so in order to get a license you had to get a loan, and so when you got the loan you had to sign off some of your stake in your creation, if not all of it. And so it's this issue where it creates a situation where it keeps you and most of the people who aren't already rich out of the system entirely. And really, this is the position that a lot of entities face these days, is that they're having to start in a deficit position, and because of that, they're having to become beholden to entities that aren't necessarily in line with their interests, and as a matter of fact, might be entirely diametrically opposed to them. And I think that we're starting to experience that a little bit in crypto, where there have been entities always that have been involved that have been counter or against the general principle and ideals of cryptocurrencies. And they've been trying to undercut and trip things up from the inside and trip things up from the outside. And the fact of the matter is this is one of those technologies, one of those very few technologies that doesn't really require some sort of master's degree in order to understand. You understand the game of money. You understand the game of currency. You've understood it ever since you understood that you were a person and that it was of greater value to be of value to your community than not. And so since that point, you've had those value points and those incentives and disincentives all monkeyed around to match the wiles of somebody else's definition of the market and not necessarily the market itself. And I think this is where Bitcoin is different, in that it gives us the ability to participate directly, and so we can have some sort of concept of exactly what's entailed in doing so. It's the same thing as farming. And I really think that what we're going through right now is going to teach us why ASIC farms is not the way to go with cryptocurrencies. Because right now we're experiencing issues with regard to the food supply chain and computer supply chain that are the products of China being the primary supplier of it. Meaning it has to go 8,000 miles across the ocean in order to get to us. It's a lot of time. That's a lot of time that it could have been manufactured here, and you probably could have sold two for the time that it took for it to get across the ocean. But anyway, because they've been this primary supplier, if there's any kind of disruption between this flow between us and them, the market at large is completely screwed, because they're all dependent upon it. At some point or another, they are all dependent upon it. Whether it's the desktops in their offices or the terminals in their stores, or any of it, all of it. About the only thing that they're not dependent upon China for is direct materials, that are sourced from that area, like the land that they put their store on and the people that they hire from the local vicinity. But that's about it. Everything else they owe something to somebody else on. And they're not growing any of this stuff, or at least in most cases they're not. So, again, they're having to rely on other providers to provide them with materials, to provide them with produce and groceries to sell. Well, I think that we're experiencing the lag effect of ignoring costs and deferring costs to a later date because of expected returns that failed to materialize. And I think that we've been living that way for about 30, maybe 40, about 20, maybe 30 years. That we've been trying to shift value around to pay for things that nobody would pay for. And in doing so, we've created a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse out there. A lot of red tape that didn't need to exist. And I think that, this disruption in that flow from China, it's causing people to grow stuff in their own property, even in their own homes. And I think the end result of that is that we're going to find out who's really good at that, and they're going to dedicate their time and effort to growing things instead of trying to serve lattes at Starbucks or cut hair at a local salon or something like that, because they'll be providing that much more value as a farmer to their community than they ever would as a hair cutter. Maybe their moonlighting is both. You never know. We can multitask in the future here. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And as far as where we're going to go subject matter wise, again, we're shooting it in the dark. I kind of hate doing that, because if I don't have a set material to go by as far as like what I'm going to write my synopsis about, I've got to go through and find some sort of general description to tie it all together, especially if I've just rambled about all night. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some body count, because that's just the way we're going to start it. But we're going to shift away from carnivore today. I mean, we might touch back to it later on, but we hardly ever play a band twice in a single evening, so that's not all that likely. Let's go ahead with this one though. First Dance, 99 Problems, here on Coin Metal. And that was White Zombie with I Zombie. Man, and let me tell you, I feel just like that. It's funny, I got out of the shower and the first thing I did is pick up something to lift and start doing fucking Turkish get-ups. So it's this isolation business, man. I can't separate between my workplace and my play space and my lifting space, and it's all the same place. I think this is one of the issues that I find with streaming. Trying to divert more of our lives, or the most of our possible lives, to the streaming media as possible. I think there's a lot of drawbacks to it. Now, I've said on this show a lot that I think that's the destiny for a lot of our careers. But, I believe that life as we know it is probably going to end. And I don't mean like, we're going to have some fucking nuclear conflagration, or we're going to have, mass zombieism or anything like that. I mean things like, instead of spending 40 hours at work, you're going to spend about like maybe 20 hours working. They're going to be very intense hours. You're going to probably be secluded, maybe even be in some sort of VR environment. But and relative time in that space will probably be adjusted too. And I think that's something that that I don't think enough people have taken into consideration is relative time. Is that in a space such as VR, 1 second doesn't have to equal 1 second. It can equal 0.5 seconds. That our brains are capable of operating a lot faster than our bodies are. And when the message doesn't have to travel all the way down to your hand to activate it, maybe it will in some aspect, but a lot of the things that you have to physically move to do in VR, you wouldn't have to. And you could probably have a lot better perspective on your actual workflow and stuff like that in a VR type environment. And here's another one. Instead of you doing a 12-hour shift, that 12-hour shift will be broken up into 6 2-hour shifts, where you'll be on it for 2 hours, and then 5 other people will be on it for 2 hours. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but the thing is that during the time that you're at that one place, you're also capable of doing all kinds of other things. In my desktop environment, I've got a minimum of 5 applications active at any one time. I've got multiple tabs open. I've got multiple jobs open. That's just my workspace of today. And of course, it would probably be arranged a little more efficiently and whatnot. But come on now. This isn't CNN or any of that. Although I do try to take what I do here seriously. Nonetheless, the point being I'm getting to is that we are going to shift to this. I was just talking to a friend that I'd really like to get on this show. It's just a matter of getting my shit together on my applications and my feeds and whatnot to where I can do that right. I can do it how I've done interviews in the past, and I wouldn't mind, just because he's available and we've got the time, we could definitely do it. We might not always have this opportunity. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, that I've foreseen that this would be a progression, that we would be going to a more online life. How that will actually express what percentage of our lives will be spent online in that type of medium, I think is entirely arbitrary. But I do not think that us being intrinsically connected to it all the time is a good thing. I think that we have to have time to be humans, and I think that we have to have time for nature to be nature, and for us to be in nature, and to do natural things. And one of those things I think that a lot more of us will be doing is planting things, and husbanding cattle and shit like that. I think that's one of those responsibilities, one of those dependencies that we've allowed to grow insidious in our lives. Now imagine though, if you had 6 more hours to do something, and maybe you're not tending 30, 40 head of cattle, maybe you're tending 10 chickens, and that's enough to sustain you egg-wise, and every once in a while you'll let let a chicken go for meat. But that's self-sustaining kind of practices that I think that a lot more of us are going to get into. And I think that we're probably going to see a revolution in agriculture. Not only in our ability to plant crops at home and grow crops at home, but also the means that we do it. Things like hydroponics were kind of forced into being by the prohibition of cannabis. And so you kind of think it was a bad thing to begin with, right? But due to the fact that you can't necessarily risk shipping in tons and tons and tons of marijuana into an inner city area. You have to grow some of it fucking locally so that you have on-hand supply all the time. Well, that requires you to get inventive, because after a while, the cops catch on to the fact that you're not importing the shit. And they're like, okay, well, if you're not importing it, you're growing it locally. Let's start looking at everybody's electricity bill. And so, it causes people to get really inventive. But what that translates into is new technologies and things that we didn't have before. And so now when it comes time to have a legal pot market, suddenly all the little tricks that we learned by stashing grow ops underground and in closets and in garages and behind hidden walls and shit like that, all of the technology from that is coming into commercial use. Things like lights, the lights that we used, LEDs, because people started getting tracked by the amount of heat that their lights were emitting. They started looking for other ways to produce the same amount of light for lower electricity and lower heat. And so, little things like this have caused us also to look at those in a paradigm of what was most effective, what produced the highest yield. And this kind of mentality is now translating in a huge way in commercial grows for crops, things that we eat. I think this trend is going to come down to the home individual person. You're gonna have a room in your house in the future that's what you're doing there. You're fucking growing shit. The lighting in there will be designed specifically for what you're growing, and you're not necessarily going to be growing everything there. You might be growing something that you can trade for other things. There are a lot of crops out there, things like fennel seed. You wouldn't think that fennel pollen would be that big a deal, but it's on par with cocaine and fucking heroin and pot with regard to gram per dollar. And you only find this stuff out if you actually bother to look. But the point being is you don't have to grow these things on a massive scale. Well, with regard to fennel pollen, you do, because from what I understand, the harvesting process of acquiring the pollen itself is a big pain in the ass, and that's one of the things that makes it so expensive. However, if somebody were to do it on a large enough scale, they would be able to figure a really efficient way of doing it and then scale down that process. And that's how it's operated with cannabis. That's how it's operated with this indoor growing that I'm talking about, where people have a small operation, they learn to expand it efficiently, and then by doing that, they find the things that they have to tweak between scale. And then those are the things the places where you find your constants, things that you don't necessarily have to change, or that the ratios are consistent. For each scale up, you still only have to add 1 part per 3, And so the point being is you learn those constants through the scaling, and they did that in the black market. And they're still doing it in the black market. It's still one of the little hotbeds of innovation. But what it translates to for us, though, now that there are more commercial applications, okay, it further incentivizes the development end. And we've seen that here in crypto too. But anyway, as far as what we're going to get into today, it has absolutely nothing to do with anything that we've been talking about so far. but I did a little scrounging around, and I guess Chainlink is seeing some appreciation. And so, yeah, I have absolutely no idea what the fuck the project is. So what do? We start looking for white papers, because that's usually the best source. It at least tells you conceptually what it's supposed to be. Whether or not it actually expresses as that, it's a whole different story. Anyway, so yeah, I hunted down the white paper for Chainlink, and so that's what we're going to get into today. Chainlink, a decentralized Oracle network. Oh, this ought to be good. This is by Steve Ellis, Ari Jules, and Sergei Nazarov. So, triple penis. And this was authored September 4th, 2017. Abstract. Smart contracts are poised to revolutionize many industries by replacing the need for both traditional legal agreements and contractually automated digital agreements. Both performance verification and execution rely on manual actions from one of the contracting parties or an automated system that programmatically retrieves and updates relevant changes. Unfortunately, because of their underlying consensus protocols, the blockchains on which smart contracts run cannot support native communication with external systems. That's not necessarily true. That's why we have scripting. Scripting languages, that is. Today, the solution to this problem is to introduce a new functionality called an oracle that provides connectivity to the outside world. Existing oracles are centralized services. Any smart contract using such services has a single point of failure, making it no more secure than a traditional centrally run digital agreement. In this paper, we present Chainlink, a decentralized Oracle network. We describe the on-chain components that Chainlink provides for contracts to gain external connectivity and the software powering the nodes of the network. We present both a simple on-chain contract data aggregation system and a more efficient off-chain consensus mechanism. We also describe supporting reputation and security monitoring services for Chainlink that help users make informed provider selections and achieve robust service even under aggressively adversarial conditions. Finally, we characterize the properties of an ideal oracle as guidance for our security strategy and lay out possible future improvements, including richly featured oracle programming, data source infrastructure, modifications, and confidential smart contract execution. And that was page 1. Introduction, we did all that. Here we go. Introduction. Smart contracts are applications that execute on a decentralized infrastructure, such as a blockchain. They are tamper-proof in the sense that no party, even their creator, can alter their code or interfere with their execution. Historically, contracts embodied in code have run in a centralized manner that leaves them subject to alteration, termination, and even deletion by a privileged party. In contrast, smart contracts, execution guarantees, which bind all parties to an agreement as written, create a new and powerful type of trust relationship that does not rely on trust in any one party. Because they are self-verifying and self-executing, i.e. tamper-proof as explained above, smart contracts thus offer a superior vehicle for realizing and administering digital agreements. I'm sensing at least one assumption of trust in that, underlying all of that stuff. Anyway, continuing on. The powerful new trust model that smart contracts embody, though, introduces a new technical challenge: connectivity. The vast majority of interesting smart contract applications rely on data about real world that comes from key resources, specifically data feeds and APIs that are external to the blockchain. Because of the mechanics of the consensus mechanisms underpinning blockchains, a blockchain cannot directly fetch such critical data. We propose a solution to the smart contract connectivity problem in the form of Chainlink, a secure Oracle network. What differentiates Chainlink from other Oracle solutions is its ability to operate as a fully decentralized network. This decentralized approach limits the trust in any single party, enabling the tamper-proof quality valued in smart contracts to be extended to the end-to-end operation between smart contracts and the APIs they rely on. Making smart contracts externally aware, meaning capable of interacting with off-chain resources, is necessary if they are going to replace the digital agreements we use today. I'm sensing a loss of understanding here because, I don't know, continuing on. I'm just going to continue on here. Today, the lion's share of traditional contractual agreements have been digitally automated, use external data to provide or to prove contractual performance, and require data outputs to be pushed to external systems. When smart contracts replace these older contractual mechanisms, they will require high assurance versions of the same types of data inputs and outputs. Examples of potential next-generation smart contracts and their data requirements include: number 1, security smart contracts such as bonds, interest rate derivatives, and many others will require access to APIs reporting market prices and market reference data, ergo interest rates. Let's see here. There's a little reference here. Number 1, the main use of smart contracts in Ethereum today is management of tokens, which are a common functionality in most smart contract networks. We believe that the current focus on tokens, to the exclusion of many other possible applications, is due to a lack of adequate Oracle services, a situation Chainlink specifically aims to remedy. I think this is a solution without a problem. But continuing on. Number 2, or bullet point 2, insurance smart contracts will need data feeds about IoT data related to the insurable event in question. Ergo, was the warehouse's magnetic door locked at the time of breach? Was the company's firewall online? Or did the flight you had insurance for arrive on time? Bullet point 3, trade finance smart contracts will need GPS data about shipments, data from supply chain ERP systems, and customs data about the goods being shipped in order to confirm fulfillment of contractual obligations. Why does this stuff need to be on a blockchain? I mean, this is stuff that it only really concerns, in transit it would concern the shipper, but in reference to whether or not the business itself took place, that's solely the business of the interested parties. And this places that kind of data outside of their grip. So, are we planning to put this under the control or purview of a larger entity? Continuing on. Another problem common to these examples is the inability for smart contracts to output data into off-chain systems. Such output often takes the form of a payment message routed to traditional centralized infrastructure in which users already have accounts, ergo for bank payments, PayPal, and other payment networks. Chainlink's ability to securely push data to APIs and various legacy systems on behalf of a smart contract permits the creation of externally aware tamper-proof contracts. Again, I don't see the necessity for this thing. White paper roadmap. In this white paper, we review the Chainlink architecture. Then we explain how we define security for oracles. We describe the Chainlink approach to decentralization/distribution of oracles and data sources, and follow with a discussion of 4 security services proposed by Chainlink, as well as the role played by linked tokens. We then describe a proposed long-term development strategy, which includes better confidentiality protections, the use of trusted hardware, that's fucking stupid, infrastructure changes, and general Oracle programmability. We briefly review alternative Oracle designs and conclude with a short discussion of the design principles and philosophy guiding Chainlink development. Number 2, architecture overview. Chainlink's core functional objective is to bridge 2 environments, on-chain and off-chain. They're already bridged. Continuing on, we describe the architecture of each Chainlink component below. Chainlink will initially be built on Ethereum, but we intend for it to support all leading smart contract networks for both off-chain and cross-chain interactions. In both its on- and off-chain versions, Chainlink has been designed with modularity in mind. Every piece of the Chainlink system is upgradable so that different components can be replaced as better techniques and competing implementations arise. 2.1 On-chain architecture. As an Oracle service, Chainlink nodes return replies to data requests or queries made by or on behalf of a user contract, which we refer to as requesting contracts and denote by user-sc. Chainlink's on-chain interface to requesting contracts is itself an on-chain contract that we denote by Chainlink-sc. Behind Chainlink-sc, Chainlink has an on-chain component consisting of 3 main contracts: a reputation contract, an order matching contract, and an aggregating contract. The reputation contract keeps track of Oracle service provider performance metrics. The order matching smart contract takes a proposed service level agreement, logs the SLA parameters, and collects bids from Oracle providers. It then selects bids using the reputation contract and finalizes the Oracle SLA. The aggregated contract collects the Oracle provider's responses and calculates the final collective result of the Chainlink query. It also feeds Oracle provider metrics back into the reputation contract. Chainlink contracts are designed in a modular manner, allowing for them to be configured or be replaced by users as needed. The on-chain workflow has 3 steps. Number 1, Oracle selection. Number 2, data reporting. And number 3, result aggregation. Oracle selection. An Oracle services purchaser specifies requirements that make up a service level agreement SLA proposal. The SLA proposal includes details such as query parameters and the number of oracles needed by the purchaser. Additionally, the purchaser specifies the reputation and aggregating contracts to be used for the rest of the agreement. Using the reputation maintained on-chain, along with a more robust set of data gathered from logs of past contracts, purchasers can manually sort, filter, and select oracles via off-chain listing services. Our intention for this is for Chainlink to maintain one such listing service, collecting all Chainlink-related logs and verifying the binaries of listed Oracle contracts. We further detailed the listing service and reputation systems in Section 5. The data used to generate listings will be pulled from the blockchain, allowing for alternative Oracle listing services to be built. Purchasers will submit SLA proposals to Oracle's off-chain and come to agreement before finalizing the SLA on-chain. Manual matching is not possible for all situations. For example, a contract may need to request Oracle services dynamically in response to its load. Automated solutions solve this problem and enhance usability. For those reasons, automated Oracle matching is also being proposed by Chainlink through the use of order matching contracts. Once the purchaser has specified their SLA proposal, instead of contracting the oracles directly, they will submit the SLA to an order matching contract. The submission of the proposal to the order matching contract triggers a log that Oracle providers can monitor and filter based on their capabilities and service objectives. Chainlink nodes then choose whether to bid on the proposal or not, with the contract only accepting bids from nodes that meet the SLA's requirements. When an Oracle service provider bids on a contract, they commit to it, specifically by attaching the penalty amount that would be lost due to their misbehavior, as defined in the SLA. Bids are accepted for the entirety of the bidding window. Once the SLA has received enough qualified bids and the bidding window is ended, the requested number of oracles is selected from the pool of bids. Penalty payments that were offered during the bidding process are returned to oracles who were not selected, and a finalized SLA record is created. When the finalized SLA is recorded, it triggers a log notifying the selected oracles. The oracles then perform the assignment detailed by the SLA. Data reporting. Once the new oracle record has been created, the off-chain oracles execute the agreement and report back on-chain. For more detail about off-chain interactions, see sections 2.2 and 4, and we're going to review both of them, so whatever. Result aggregation. Once the oracles have revealed their results to the oracle contract, their results will be fed to the aggregating contract. The aggregating contract tallies the collective results and calculates a weighted answer. The validity of each oracle response is then reported to the reputation contract. Finally, the weighted answer is returned to the specified contract function in user-sc. Detecting outlying or incorrect values is a problem that is specific to each type of data feed and application. For instance, detecting and rejecting outlying answers before averaging may be necessary for numeric data, but not Boolean. For this reason, there will not be a specific aggregating contract, but a configurable contract address, which is specified by the purchaser. Chainlink will include a standard set of aggregating contracts, but customized contracts may also be specified, provided they conform to the standard calculation interface. And we're going to go ahead and pause there, and we're on page 6, 2.2 off-chain architecture. But yeah, I'm getting a little dry in the throat here. But let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And as far as where to go, I don't know, my program seems to be hung up here. There we go. Every once in a while, it finds some some song that it wants to play that's like stashed away in a directory. It can't just like bring right up. I've tried to rectify that a few times, but things happen. Anyways, as far as where we're going to go is on music. I don't know. I hadn't picked anything out. Well, here we go. Probot, Centuries of Sin, here on Coin Metal. That last one was kind of unintentional, a little bit of Sepultura there, The Hunt. Oh man, I'm hoping this white paper has a lot of references. But let's get back into it. Chainlink, and we are on page 6. At the bottom of page 6, 2.2, off-chain architecture. This is going to be funny, I think. Off-chain Chainlink initially consists of a network of Oracle nodes connected to the Ethereum network, and we intend for it to support all leading smart contract networks. These nodes independently harvest responses to off-chain requests. As we explain below, their individual responses are aggregated via one of several possible consensus mechanisms into a global response that is returned to a requesting contract user-SC. The Chainlink nodes are powered by the standard open source core implementation, which handles standard blockchain interactions, scheduling, and connecting with common external resources. Node operators may choose to add software extensions known as external adapters that allow operators to offer additional specialized off-chain services. Chainlink nodes have already been deployed alongside both public blockchains and private networks in enterprise settings. Enabling the nodes to run in a decentralized manner is the motivation for the Chainlink network. Chainlink Core. The core node software is responsible for interfacing with the blockchain, scheduling and balancing work across various external services. Work done by Chainlink nodes is formatted as assignments. Each assignment is a set of smaller job specifications known as subtasks, which are processed as a pipeline. Each subtask has a specific operation it performs before passing its result on to the next subtask and ultimately reaching its final result. Chainlink's node software comes with few subtasks built in, including HTTP requests, JSON parsing, and conversion to various blockchain formats. External adapters. Beyond the built-in subtask types, custom subtasks can be defined by creating adapters. Adapters are external services with a minimal REST API. By modeling adapters as a service-oriented manner, programs in any programming language can be easily implemented simply by adding a small intermediate API in front of the program. Similarly, interacting with complicated multi-step APIs can be simplified to individual subtasks with parameters. Subtask schemes. We anticipate that many adapters will be open sourced so that services can be audited and run by various community members. With many different types of adapters being developed by many different developers, ensuring compatibility between adapters is essential. Chainlink currently operates with a schema system based on JSON schema, or JSON schema, to specify what inputs each adapter needs and how they should be formatted. Similarly, adapters specify an output schema to describe the format of each subtask's output. Oracle security. Number 3. In order to explain Chainlink's security architecture, we must first explain why security is important and what it means. Why must oracles be secure? Returning to our simple examples in Section 1, if a smart contract security gets a false data feed, it may pay out to the incorrect party. If smart contract insurance data feeds can be tampered with by the insured party, there may be an insurance fraud. And if GPS data given to a trade finance contract can be modified after it leaves the data provider, payment can be released for goods that haven't arrived. More generally, a well-functioning blockchain with its ledger or built-in board abstraction offers very strong security properties. Users rely on the blockchain as a functionality that correctly validates transactions and prevents data from being altered. They treat it in effect like a trusted third party, a concept we discuss at length below. A supporting Oracle service must offer a level of security commensurate with that of the blockchain it supports. An Oracle, too, must therefore serve users as an effective trusted third party, providing correct and timely responses with very high probability. The security of any system is only as strong as its weakest link. So, a highly trustworthy Oracle is required to preserve the trustworthiness of a well-engineered blockchain. Yeah, you keep putting fucking trust in there. You don't need trust. If you're operating solely on chain, you don't even need a fucking Oracle. Continuing on. Defining Oracle security, an ideal view. In order to reason about Oracle security, we must first define it. An instructive, principled way to reason about Oracle security stems from the following thought experiment. Imagine that a trusted third party, TTP, an ideal entity or functionality that always carries out transactions faithfully to the letter, we're tasked with running an Oracle. We denote this Oracle by Oracle, using all caps in general to denote any entity fully trusted by users, and suppose that the TTP obtains data from a perfectly trustworthy data source, SRC. Given this magical service Oracle, what instructions would we ask it to carry out? To achieve the property of integrity, also referred to as the authenticity property, we would simply ask the Oracle to perform the following steps. Let's see, the blockchain user SC contract goes accept request, Oracle contract, external API off chain, obtain data, and then back to Oracle contract, and then return data to user SC contract. Figure 2. Behavior of an ideal Oracle. Oracle is defined by steps. Number 1, accept request. Number 2, obtain data. Number 3, return data. Additionally, to protect the confidentiality of a request, upon decrypting it, Oracle never uses or reveals the data it contains, except to query source. Number 1, accept request. Ingest from a smart contract user SC a request, REQ equals source RNQ, that specifies a target data source a time or range of times, and a query Q. Obtain data, send query Q to source at time range, or range of times. Return data. On receiving answer A, return A to the smart contract. These simple instructions correctly carried out define a strong, meaningful, but simple notation of security. Intuitively, they dictate that Oracle acts as a trustworthy bridge between source and user SC. For example, if source is https://www.fountainofknowledge.com, the range time is 4 p.m. and the queue is price for ticker INTC. The integrity of Oracle guarantees that it will provide user SC with exactly the price of INTC as queried at 4 p.m. at https fountainofknowledge.com. Confidentiality is another desirable property for oracles. As user SC sends requests to Oracle in the clear on the blockchain, the request is public. There are many situations in which request is sensitive and its publication could be harmful. If user SC is a flight issuance contract or insurance contract, for example, and sends Oracle a query request regarding a particular user's flight, Q equals Ether Air Flight 338, the result would be that a user's flight plans are revealed to the whole world. Unless, of course, it was encrypted. If user SC is a contract for financial trading, requests could leak information about a user's trades and portfolio. There are many other examples, of course. To protect the confidentiality of the request, we can require that data in request be encrypted under a public key belonging to the Oracle. Continuing to leverage the TTP nature of Oracle, we could simply give Oracle the information flow constraint. Upon decrypting requests, never reveal or use data in request except to query source. There are other important Oracle properties such as availability, the last of the classical CIA confidentiality, integrity, availability triad. A truly ideal service, Oracle, of course, would never go down. Availability also encompasses more subtle properties such as censorship resistance. An honest Oracle will not single out particular smart contracts and deny their requests. It depends on the parameters that the Oracle is going by. If the Oracle is set to recognize, say, a proprietary tag on the transaction and deny transactions that lack the proprietary tag, then it will deny their requests if they don't have the tag. Continuing on. The concept of a trusted third party is similar to the notion of an ideal functionality used to prove the security of cryptographic protocols in certain models. We can also model a blockchain in similar terms, conceptualizing it in terms of a TTP that maintains an ideal bulletin board. Its instructions are to accept transactions, validate them, serialize them, and maintain them permanently on the bulletin board, and append only data structure. Why the ideal Oracle is hard to achieve. There is, of course, no perfectly trustworthy data source. Data may be benignly or maliciously corrupted due to faulty websites, cheating service providers, or honest mistakes. If source isn't trustworthy, then even if Oracle does operate exactly like a TTP or trusted third party as instructed above, it still doesn't completely meet the notion of security we want. Given a faulty source, the integrity property defined above no longer means that an Oracle's answer A is correct. If the true price of Intel is $40 and https www.fountainofknowledge.com misreports it as $50, for example, then Oracle will send the incorrect value A equals $50 to user SC. The problem is unavoidable when using a single source. Oracle simply has no way to know whether the answers source provides to its queries are correct. The bigger issue, of course, is the fact that our TTP for Oracle is just an abstraction No service provider is unconditionally trustworthy. Even the best intention may be buggy or hacked. There is no way for a user to or smart contract to have absolute assurance that a service oracle will carry out its instructions faithfully. Chainlink reasons about its security protocols in terms of its ideal functionality, Oracle. Our goal in Chainlink is to achieve a real-world system with properties as close as possible to those of Oracle under realistic trust assumptions. We now explain how. For simplicity in what follows, we now denote by Chainlink SC the complete set of Chainlink contracts, i.e. its full on-chain functionality, not just its interface to requesting contracts. We thereby abstract away the multiple individual contracts actually used in the system architecture. Number 4. Chainlink decentralization approach. We propose 3 basic complementary approaches to ensuring against faulty nodes. Number 1, distribution of data sources. Number 2, distribution of oracles. And number 3, use of trusted hardware. We discuss the first 2 approaches, which involve decentralization in this section. We discuss our long-term strategy for trusted hardware, a different and complementary approach, in Section 6. 4.1. Distributing sources. A simple way to deal with a faulty single source or SRC is to obtain data from multiple sources, i.e. distribute the data source. A trustworthy oracle can query a collection of sources, source 1, source 2, through source k, obtain responses A1, A2, AK, and aggregate them into a single answer, A equals AGG, which is the range A1 through AK. Oracle might do this in any of a number of ways. One, for example, is a majority voting. If a majority of sources return the identical value A, the function AGG returns A, otherwise it returns an error. In this case, provided that a majority, greater than K divided by 2 sources, are functioning correctly, Oracle will always return a correct value A. Many alternative functions, AGG can ensure robustness against erroneous data or handle functions in data values over time, ergo, stock prices. For example, AGG might discard outliers, ergo the largest and smallest values A, and output the mean of the remaining ones. Of course, faults may be correlated across data sources in a way that weakens the assurances provided by aggregation. If site source 1, echo.com, obtains its data from source 2, thehorsesmouth.com, an error at source 2 will always imply an error at source 1. More subtle correlations between data sources can also occur. Chainlink also proposes to pursue research into mapping and reporting the independence of data sources in an easily digestible ways so that oracles and users can avoid undesired correlations. 4.2. Distributing oracles. Just as sources can be distributed, our ideal service oracle itself can be approximated as a distributed system. This is to say that instead of a single monolithic oracle node O, we can instead have a collection of n different oracle nodes. Each oracle contacts its own distinct set of data sources, which may or may not overlap with those of other oracles. O aggregates responses from its data sources and outputs its own distinct answer A to a query request. Some of these oracles may be faulty. So clearly, these set of all oracle answers, A1 through AN, will need to be aggregated in a trustworthy way into a single authoritative value A. But given the possibility of faulty oracles, where and how will this aggregation happen in Chainlink? Initial solution: in-contract aggregation. Our initial proposal solution in Chainlink will be a simple one called in-contract aggregation. Chainlink SC, which again denotes the on-chain part of Chainlink, will itself aggregate oracle responses. Alternatively, Chainlink-SC may call another aggregation contract, but for conceptual simplicity, we assume that the two components form a single contract. In other words, Chainlink SC will compute A equals AGG for some function AGG and send the result A to user SC. This approach is practical for small n and has several distinct benefits. Number one, conceptual simplicity. Despite the fact that the oracle is distributed, a single entity, Chainlink SC, performs aggregation by executing AGG. Number two, trustworthiness. As Chainlink SC's code can be publicly inspected, its correct behavior can be verified. Chainlink-SC will be a relatively small, simple piece of code. Additionally, Chainlink SC's execution is fully visible on-chain. Thus, users, i.e. creators of user-SC, can achieve a high degree of trust in Chainlink-SC. Yeah, they could be seeing like the relationships between representations that are happening on your blockchain, but what they can't see is how that actually expresses in the real world until, in fact, the rubber hits the road. And that's kind of the point of these things, is that you're supposed to be able to tell exactly what happened without actually being there. So something like doing an on-chain transaction from you to another person on, say, either the Bitcoin or even the Ethereum network. When I send the transaction to you, I know that the transaction completed when I get a confirmation. That means the network received the transaction, included it in a block, confirmed that it was in a block, and is now working on the next block, based on the data from the previous block. That's how proof of work is supposed to work, right? Well, these guys are like trying to get around all that business. They want to establish a single instance on one of the blockchains, either Ethereum or Bitcoin or one of the others, and do all kinds of stuff in the background and expect that they're going to be able to provide actionable data before transactions have fully settled. Because in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, the transactions don't settle until there's a confirming transaction. So, when we're talking about these smart contracts, there's usually like an initiating transaction and then a terminating transaction. And of course, with smart contracts, it can be one and the same. You can get it to where the conditions, like this, they're talking about the conditions set to complete the transaction, to make the transaction to where the money goes to all the outputs that it's set to, is a separate outside external event. And you can do that. And one of the ways I propose to do it is like this. Like, the only thing that really matters in my book is whether or not it's actually been sent to be received in the real world. And one of the ways to confirm that, of course, is to have an intermediary that's receiving the package, parcel, or whatever, and moving it along to you. In the case of physical packages, we're talking about the Postal Service. Well, they themselves have their own little tracking APIs and all that other shit that they have that match up with their internal systems. So when you take a package and you lay it on the table and you do a transaction and saying that you want to send it to a particular place and you got your address on there. They calculate what the transit cost is. They charge that to you, but they assign the transaction and the package itself an identifier that you can look up on a website and verify that they have received it at a postal place, and you can track it as it flows through their physical systems, because that's updated in real time, or as real as it gets. They go from one point to another. It's registered at each point that it's received at, that it's physically received at. And in this way, we can track a package, right? Well, all we really care about on the end of, whether or not you've sent a package is whether or not they've received it from the initial sender to this a mail or postal body that is transiting it to you. That's all we care about. Because then the responsibility ends at that point. When the manufacturer has the product, they have no guarantee that it's actually going to get to you. I mean, for all they know, after they've done the transaction and it's logged there, one of the employees could gank it from the back and it never leaves that place. But we have a record of it. We can track via the tracking information that's given to us when we make that purchase of the transit for that package where it was received at. We know from looking at their own records that it never left that place. But we do know that it was sent. And so the liability on the part of the manufacturer, on the part of the retailer, is over at that point. And when it comes to who to point the finger at and whatever, we start looking internally at the place that it was received at to be sent from. Because as far as we're concerned, as far as the logs and everything else tells us, an independent third party that their sole job is to send packages, or transit packages rather, from one point to another, is the place where it got lost. And not the manufacturer, not the manufacturer's warehouse, not the retailer's warehouse or the back room or one of the retailer's employees or something like that. We know it was received by the parcel deliverer according to their own records. And so that's a pretty damn trustworthy piece of information, is when it is actually received at a postal carrier, when they assign it a tracking number. At that point, that tracking number, you enter it in to the smart contract or whatever, that closes the smart contract out, settles everything out, you get your money, everybody happy. That to me is the extent of the utility of smart contracts, is you are providing the retailer an assurance that the transaction is happening, and the only thing holding it up is their dumb ass and their intransigence and their laziness and their fuck ups and whatever, and so it's their fault. Now, whether or not this will ever be applied in such a way, I don't know. It seems like they're trying to create a whole bunch of trust bullshit on top of it. These things never work out as they intended. I mean, they never do. And especially when they're starting it as a dependent upon something like Ethereum. And then, we're gonna spawn our own little project off from it and supposedly be able to sustain ourselves. And we've seen some projects be able to do that, but it's not the majority of them. The vast majority still die on the vine, just like any other kind of project or any other industry. Let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And we got something going on in the background. I gotta delete that shit. I gotta tell you, Trent Reznor, I love a lot of your music. But most of the stuff that you're doing with Atticus, I think, is a waste of your time and a waste of his time, and you guys are having way too much sex, and you need to go off and do music with people that do music other than one another. Anyway, as far as what to throw down with, I want to go with a little bit of textures here. New Horizons here on Coin Metal. And that was Metallica with Ronnie Rising. And so, ashamedly, we did not get to the end of this white paper. But I do want to get into something else, though. Because it's slightly more important, especially considering how much people are wanting to go over to some sort of streaming service for their office shit. I swear, you gotta have like a little app, like a, I don't know, like an IRC kind of thing, or an ICQ kind of thing, where it's a standalone app and allows you to connect and stream directly with people peer-to-peer without a third-party intermediary. It should be a completely standalone app. You don't even need to be online on the internet to use it. Like, you could use it in like an intranet kind of setting where you have individual desktops that are communicating with one another via a central server or even wireless connection. I think that would be far more practical than Zoom or any of these others. And we talk about the security issues that are contributed to by adding third parties, and this is an instance of it. And I do want to get back to Chainlink and give like a brief synopsis of what I think about that. And as a matter of fact, I ought to do that first before we get into this other thing. Because, I mean, I give a little bit of load up, but I haven't read the title of the article, so we can always refer back to that. Anyway, Chainlink. I see this as a tool like a, I don't know how to explain it, like a ratchet that is in like 39th inch, segments. So like, most ratchets, or almost all ratchets, the sockets for them are denominated in 16ths and 8ths and quarters and halves, right? So imagine it's 39ths, according to 39ths. Okay, that's the kind of thing that I think this Chainlink business is. That you can already do all of the things that they're proposing completely end-to-end between you and individual users. The information that's actually out on a public blockchain does not have to be indicative of anything. Meaning that nobody else needs to actually be able to interpret what the data means, except for the end user, the person receiving it, and you. They're the only entities that need to be able to understand the data that's being that can be found on the blockchain. So your encryption could be on one end or the other, or your decryption rather, could be on both ends. And so you would actually have to be like a user or a participant in that network, or you would have to be privy to that particular transaction. The encoding itself could be on an individual basis, and so the decryption key or whatever could be set on the user end, and that would provide all the security that all this Chainlink business is supposed to do, without any additional any need for them at all. And so when I'm trying to whip up that analogy about sockets being measured in 39ths of an inch, what I'm trying to show is that it's a highly specialized tool that does everything does a few things that you can do on a public blockchain, but that in itself, in its design, in its intent of use, creates more problems and limits its capabilities far more than just a regular old cryptocurrency used by you. And I see this as a problem, because as soon as you enter somebody else into it, and especially on the end that this thing is supposed to be working on, where you have trusted entities between you and the data, you and the transaction, these are the exact danger points. You don't want anybody in those. You want as few entities in those spots as possible. If any, you can completely eliminate them if you're doing your transactions completely on chain. So again, Why would you use it? I don't know. I think over the longer term, if it's current and it's live, that they will have a limited number of users, if at all. They'll persist for 1 to 3 years if they're currently live, and will probably fall off long before they actually become an independent project. If they've become an independent project, I would assume it's because they have some sort of specific niche case that they were developed for that they're fitting into, and they haven't really bridged beyond that yet, and probably won't. Anyway, continuing on, I had this other thing that I want to get into, and this one's kind of important because a lot of you guys have been wanting to use Zoom and other kinds of third-party streaming services, and here's the danger in that. And this is from NBCNewYork.com. Passwords, email addresses for thousands of Zoom accounts for sale on the dark web. One data set includes about 530,000 accounts. This is published on April 14th, 2020 at 11:34 p.m. Who is the author? It does not tell us. Anyway, continuing on. Zoom users who reuse the same passwords from other accounts may face an ugly unintended consequence, having their login information sold on the dark web, NBC reports. Personal account information, including email addresses, passwords, and the web addresses for Zoom meetings, are being posted freely and sold for pennies. One data set for sale on a dark web marketplace discovered by an independent security firm and verified by NBC News includes about 530,000 accounts. Let me see if it gives us any more on this article. Oh, fuck you fucking people. Destroy your fucking privacy and give us your shit. Fuck you. I'm not going to do it. Zoom security passwords. I'll just Google it and find it on another place. Let's see here. News. And we'll just go here. Oh, shit. We got to do a different time range. Let's see here. There we go. Fox Business. Maybe they'll be cool to us. No. Hacked Zoom accounts, personal information are being sold on the dark web. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Oh, you sons of bitches. Personal information from hundreds of thousands of Zoom accounts, including passwords and email addresses, is being sold on the dark web, according to a recent report. In fact, one data set sold on the hacker forum included 530,000 accounts, according... Aha! Here we go. Bleeping Computer was, I guess, the first people to account for this, and this is by Lawrence Abrams. So, yes. Penis. Let's see. Over 500,000 Zoom accounts are being sold on the dark web and hacker forums for less than a penny each, and in some cases given away for free. These credentials are gathered through credential stuffing attacks, where threat actors attempt to log into Zoom using accounts leaked in older data breaches. The successful logins are then compiled into lists and are sold to other hackers. Some of these Zoom accounts are offered for free on hacker forums so that hackers can use them in Zoom bombing pranks and malicious activities. Others are sold for less than a penny each. Cybersecurity intelligence firm Cybele told Bleeping Computer that around April 1st, 2020, they began to see free Zoom accounts being posted on hacker forums to gain an increased reputation in the hacker community. These accounts are shared via text sharing sites where threat actors are posting lists of email addresses and password combinations. In the below example, 290 accounts related to colleges, such as University of Vermont, University of Colorado, Dartmouth, Lafayette, and University of Florida, and many more were released for free. Bleeping Computer has contacted random email addresses exposed in these lists and has confirmed that some of the credentials were correct. One exposed user told Bleeping Computer that the listed password was an old one, which indicates that some of these credentials are likely from older credential stuffing attacks. Accounts sold in bulk. After seeing a seller posting accounts on a hacker forum, Cybele reached out to purchase a large number of accounts in bulk so that they could be used to warn their customers of the potential breach. Cybele was able to purchase approximately 530,000 Zoom credentials for less than a penny each at 0.002 cents per account. The purchased accounts include victims' email address, password, personal meeting URL, and their host key. Cybele has told Bleeping Computer that these accounts include ones for well-known companies such as Chase, Citibank, educational institutions, and more. Yeah, this is a pretty long article, and I'm not going to be able to get to all of it, but if you're using Zoom and you're using it like connected to your Facebook or Twitter, something like that, disconnect it from that and make it a standalone thing and give it its own password. That's probably the best advice I could provide if you're going to continue to use it. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday. So until then, I want y'all to trade safe, do your homework, and watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And as far as our last dance is concerned, we're going to go short and sweet, our traditional for that, or one of them. Rather, I've got two. Let me see if I can find the damn thing here. System of a Down, where are you? There you are. Bounce. Here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening. Good night.